The holidays are a bit of a quiet time for video game releases, and since we're rapidly approaching the end of the year, I thought I'd take a look back at a few bigger games that I totally want an excuse to play and never got the chance to. Welcome to the Year in Review. And first off, we're going to check out Disco Elysium, the hard-boiled police drama that starts like this.
There is nothing, only warm primordial blackness. Your conscience ferments in it, no larger than a single grain of malt. You don't have to do anything anymore.
Disco Elysium has one hell of an arresting introduction, but if it doesn't have you as instantly hooked as it did me, then watch on and maybe I can convince you that it's really as good as everyone says it is. As always, I'm Alex, and this is First 5, where I ask if games are worth your time, not your money. I played a game for 5 hours, and I'm gonna tell you if those were 5 hours well spent. And today we're getting to the bottom of a case in Disco Elysium. CRPGs have always appealed to me from a narrative view. I'm a hardcore D&D fan that's been playing since I was like 7, so a narratively rich dive into the fantastical sword and sorcery world of the Forgotten Realms that forms the backdrop for many of the genre's greatest hits has always been hella appealing. But, and here's where I might lose some of you, the actual mechanical side of D&D is honestly kinda dry. Like, it's the thing you work through so you can get to the fun narrative and roleplay parts. Doubly so when you're not playing with other people, and triply so when you have to constantly pause the game to control 6 party members at once. So I've always kinda bounced off the genre. But you can probably guess where I'm going with this, because Disco Elysium has been widely hailed as a sort of spiritual successor to Planescape Torment, aka that one CRPG that had barely any combat where you spent the entire time just reading a choose-your-own-adventure novel instead. And you know what? I'm an English major, I like reading books, this game falls squarely into my interests in a way that few games do. So obviously, this is my jam! Disco Elysium starts with you waking up from one hell of a bender. The room's a mess, the record player's trash, there's a hole in your window, and one of your shoes is missing. And if you thought your room looked like shit, wait until you get a look at yourself. Your face is a devastated, pulpy mess, and your mind's in an even worse state, shattered so thoroughly that you don't even remember who you are and what you're doing here. You quickly discover, however, that you're a police officer, and you've been assigned to investigate the hanging of a man who has still been hanging there for a full week while you've drunk yourself into such a staggeringly impressive stupor that you've forgotten your own name. And so you start investigating 2 mysteries at once, the mystery of the murder and the mystery of who the hell you are. And through it all, you have this compelling dilemma where you have to decide how much you want to fake it till you make it, and how hard you want to lean on your partner, Kim. Throw in decades of political unrest and clashing ideologies, and you've got a lot of moving parts in this narrative that all interweave and take turns surfacing in new and interesting ways. But what's really fascinating about Disco Elysium is the skill system. In true RPG form, the game has a spread of 24 different skills you can invest in, ranging from your usual classics like Encyclopedia, which is a general knowledge check, to somewhat more unique ones like Corps d'Esprit, which is your understanding of police procedure and conduct. That all sounds pretty straightforward, but where Disco Elysium takes it up a notch is with how it presents those skills, with each being its own anthropomorphized character that talks to you. You can be asking someone for information when all of a sudden Encyclopedia helpfully mentions a factoid that gives context to their response. Or Composure will give you a running analysis of a person's demeanor. Electrochemistry, meanwhile, might suddenly start egging you on to do some drugs because you need that sweet fix. These moments come together best when multiple skills pipe up at once, and it's almost like your entire party is murmuring together in consensus. Or alternatively, like having an earpiece with a whole team of specialists feeding you relevant information as you work. And as I showed in the intro, your skills aren't the only parts of your mind being personified. They show up less often, but things like the lizard brain do an astounding job of keeping you up to date on your mental state in a way that would likely come across as stuffy purple prose in a novel, but is executed wonderfully here in a game. Those skills are also augmented by thoughts, ideas that can be as simple as thinking about high fives or disco to more heavy-duty concepts, like communism. You pick a thought, let it percolate in the back of your mind for a few in-game hours while you go about your day, and eventually it'll give you a bit of character growth and a few bonuses to your skills. But one final wrinkle to the skill system is the fact that skills can backfire on you. I've yet to really run into the issue in the first 5 hours, but every skill warns how sometimes you can be too good at a thing. If your reflexes are too good, your body can move before your brain catches up and do something you regret. Or, returning to my old favorite, Encyclopedia, sometimes you get little factoids that are neither relevant nor remotely helpful. There was, however, one particularly memorable early game instance of this that I ran into, where I infringed on 2 old men playing some kind of ball game. I was eager to do well, and the game gave me a bonus to my check to play sports good if I just started playing without asking any questions. So I went for it, and... This in turn sent me off on a side quest to find a replacement ball that I still haven't figured out how to resolve. While the scene itself wasn't all that high stakes, it was made memorable by the little ways Disco Elysium manipulated and goaded me into doing something incredibly stupid, and it created one of the most organic side quests I've stumbled upon all year to boot. And in a roundabout way, that scene kind of summarizes how the gameplay works, whether you're tracking down small side quests or on the trail of the murderer. Everything in Disco Elysium is mostly just decision-making. Your senses inform you on the situation, and you make the best choice possible given what your varying skills inform you, even when those skills occasionally betray you. Even when you do get physical, the situation is resolved with a simple dice roll and a few dialogue options. But the situations themselves are anything but simple. Your first major task is to investigate the murder body, which happens to be strung up on a tree, and even just getting the body down is a task all of its own. I swear, between investigating the crime scene, getting the body down, and performing an autopsy, I think I spent over an hour and a half just fiddling with this one body. Disco Elysium gets in-depth with some of its scenes. Other games have massive explosions and firefights for their set pieces. Disco Elysium's set pieces are stuff like a half-hour-long autopsy where you exhaustively check off every box of the report like a proper damn cop. And it works! Believe me, if I thought any of this felt padded, I'd probably be the first to holler about it, but these scenes aren't so much bloated as they are meticulous. And that meticulousness makes them utterly engrossing. Between the game's attention to detail and the never-ending back and forth with your skills feeding you information, Disco Elysium's tone is nearly singular. Mix in the final thread of your detective's own personal past, and you've got a masterfully crafted narrative cocktail. But all that said, what happens if you only have the time to take a sip of that cocktail? What do you get out of 5 hours with Disco Elysium? Here I confess that I went an extra hour and change longer just to reach the end of the very first day. And I couldn't tell you how many days there are in Disco Elysium, but so far this first one has been jam-packed. Disco Elysium is a dense game, which means you're not remotely going to get something approaching a full experience in just 5 hours. But my god, have I been having a great time with it so far. Everything about Disco Elysium is astoundingly well done. Music and voice acting are a little sparse, but well executed. The writing on display is jaw-dropping, and the game itself comes up with fascinating new ways to present old systems like your skills. After playing even just a little bit of it, I can see why people keep bringing it up as a Game of the Year contender. It really is that good. If you're hungry for more narrative-centric games after Disco Elysium, maybe you'll enjoy the lesser-known Still There. Or you can catch up on Afterparty, the follow-up to another narrative great, Oxenfree. But I hope you enjoyed this first 5 review. If you did, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. If you're looking for games that value your time and don't pad themselves, I'm your guy. Thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you all next week.